Welcome to the Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting, Exeter, New Hampshire, for August 17th, 2021. Let's see, we'll start with some business. We have 6 members present this evening, beginning on my far left, Martha Pennell, Ann Sermon. My far right, Chris Merrill, Laura Davies, Esther Olson-Murphy. My name is Bob Pryor. I'll be the acting chair this evening in the absence of Chairman Kevin Baum. We have one piece of new business and then approval of minutes afterwards. Before we get going with the new business, also there are 6 of us here, 5 vote. We have 2 alternate members, Ms. Pennell and Mr. Merrill. You're an alternate as well. We have 3 alternates and Ms. Sermon. So 5 of us need to vote. Is there somebody who, for some reason, would like to either vote or not vote on the new business?
I don't have to vote.
Okay, that's fine. Ms. Pennell will not be a voting member, but obviously will participate in all the discussions and all the questions and everything. So we're going to start then with the application of ZV Investments LLC for a special exception for Article 4, Section 4.2, Schedule 1, permitted uses, and Article 5, Section 5.2, to permit the conversion of an existing single-family home and accessory structure into 4 residential condominiums. The subject property is located at 50 Newfields Road in the R1 low-density, not rural, I got that wrong, in the R1 low-density residential zoning district. This is tax map parcel number 35 9, thank you. Blank on my agenda, isn't that weird? Case number 21-9. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Barry Geyer with Jones Beach Engineers, here for the applicant. Also with me tonight is Mr. Dan Martin with ZV Investments.
Okay.
Just to clarify, it actually is Zone RU. This project is 5.85 acres in Zone RU. And as indicated, the intent of the project is to convert the existing house and accessory structure into 4 condominium units. The existing house will be, I think I can take this off.
I'm just looking at the special exception application which you completed and signed. It says R1.
Yeah, I think we had that incorrect on there.
Okay.
But on the letter here, it says rural, RU.
Okay.
Inconsistent.
Inconsistent, but the clarification is that it is in fact RU.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Garrett.
So the 4 units will be as outlined. You can see the purple outline is the total property acreage. The yellow outline is the unit 1, which the outline, the total outline is the limited common. You can see the existing house, which would be unit 1. And then the 3 units 2, 3, and 4, 2, 3, and 4 are outlined in orange, green, and pink. And the heavy blocked area is the actual structure, and then the white area is the limited common area for each one. Each unit has 2 parking spaces. Unit 1 will utilize the existing garage. Unit 2, 3, and 4 have designated parking spaces, and there are 4 additional parking spaces for guest parking.
So you've done the calculation based on the number of bedrooms and you have sufficient parking?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
The project is uniquely situated for the conversion, as it is a large lot, being 5.85 acres, and there exists sufficient parking already for the additional impervious already for the parking without any additional impervious. We are here tonight seeking a special exception under Article 4.2, Schedule 1 on permitted uses. Under footnote 1, the proposed conversion is allowed with a special exception if the project meets the requirements of footnote 1. So we can either go through those requirements of footnote 1 or the special use requirements, or I can answer questions.
We have to get through footnote 1 before we get to everything else. So if you don't mind starting with that.
Absolutely. So item number 1 required is the number of spaces for off-street parking shall comply with Article 5.6. Excuse me. We are required 10 parking spaces, and we do have 10 parking spaces on the site depicted. I should say, in addition, In addition to the exterior parking spaces that meet the requirement, they are proposing interior parking spaces for each of the units. So each of the units will have a garage,
A one-car garage?
a one-car garage.
Okay, and the parking on the plan in the orange and green and pink, that's exterior parking, surface parking.
Yes, except for the yellow one, which is an existing garage.
Thank you.
Two-car or one?
So under footnote 1, item number 2 is the minimum lot size required shall be such that each dwelling unit is provided with 30% of the minimum lot size required for the district. So under this, the density calculations are included as item number 2 on our plan, but the required area is 52,272 square feet, and we are the project has 145,910 square feet, meeting that requirement. Number 3 is that the structure has been a residency for a minimum of 10 years, and the existing primary building was constructed as a residence in 1925, from what we could find.
Okay.
Number 4 is the lot must meet the minimum of 20% open space. The project has approximately 95% open space, so we clearly meet that requirement. Number 5 is for the conversion to be intended for rentals, one of the dwellings shall remain owner occupied. Excuse me. These units are intended to be sold, so that doesn't apply.
All of them, including the main home?
Yes.
Okay.
Number 6 is that the Board of Adjustments may require the planning board to review the proposed site plan. We are aware of this. We'll go to the planning board as necessary. Number 7 is that the Board of Adjustments may allow the expansion to an existing structure for the purpose of providing additional area for the units, provided all of the requirements are met. Any expansion greater than 400 square feet shall require planning board review of the proposed plan. We are aware of that. We aren't intending to expand currently, but if we do, we understand that we will be required to go to the planning board for review.
So those, when I went by this afternoon, there was the house and then the blue building to the left of that.
Yes.
Those 3 condos, is that correct? 3 condos are going to be in that blue building.
Correct.
And what is the use, existing use in the blue building?
I believe it was previously a church, but I don't think there's any use besides storage, garage. I don't even think it's a garage. I think it's just storage.
Right.
Yeah, just a vacant building.
But it was a church, that's what
Yeah,
it was.
at one point.
At one point, okay.
Blue Ribbon Cleaners, weren't they there?
I have no idea. A long time ago. Yeah, might have.
I don't know.
That would be concerning from a hazardous waste standpoint.
The common area that you have marked, sorry to be interrupting, but I mean,
No,
we're a little cash this evening, I think, in terms of structure. What you have is marked as common area behind, if you will, on the non-garage side of the 3 units. Is that open area, or is that, no, the 3 little squares above the...
The limited common area that
Above,
you have attached to the condos.
Those, is that exterior?
Yes,
That's not
exterior.
structure. Okay.
If you want to have, a patio set.
Got it.
Barbecue, something of that nature.
I didn't know if that was an expansion of the footprint of the building.
No. The only expansion of the footprint that's currently proposed is up. They're going to go up 1 floor.
I assumed as much when I saw you didn't give us elevations, but the floor plan.
Right.
I wouldn't want to have a bedroom stuck.
No.
No, okay, right.
So moving on, number 8 is
Yep.
that prior to any renovations, the owner shall provide evidence to the town building inspector that septic facilities are adequate for both units or all the units according to the standards of the town and New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. If deemed necessary by the building inspector, such evidence shall be in the form of certification by the state of New Hampshire, licensed septic systems designer. Also, the owner shall provide evidence there's adequate potable water according to the standards of the state of New Hampshire. We are aware of this. We've already talked to Mr. Eastman about this, and we will have to expand the existing septic
So
system.
you're on septic and well?
We are on septic and well.
Okay.
How about the well? Where is that on this plan? I didn't, okay, in the wetlands.
Yes, that's an existing well in the wetlands.
And is that adequate for your purposes?
We believe so.
Okay.
You allowed to touch it?
I believe you can. We are going to confirm that. Actually, the septic system and there were some well upgrades this winter because I believe the septic system failed for that house over the winter. So they actually installed a new septic system and upgraded some of the water lines for the well.
Okay.
So the house is going to be just one unit?
Yes, ma'am.
Why, I just found it interesting that you chose 3 for the garage and 1 for the house. I would have had a second one.
I'm not sure. I think that was an economic decision by the applicant.
Could be a floor plan situation on the inside.
Yeah, fair enough.
So the existing driveway, I know this is a state road, is adequate for this purpose? Do you need to get an upgraded driveway?
No, we don't
permit?
believe so. I mean, we can double check with DOT, but remember, it was used as a church at
that's
one
true.
point, and so it definitely had more traffic in and out than we anticipated.
Absolutely, okay.
Actually, I would imagine in terms of round trips per week, you're going to be generating more than the church would,
Yes, but not peaks.
not peaks. Okay. I found exiting the driveway, I did a walk around yesterday, and I found exiting the driveway to be somewhat problematic, to be honest with you. That's not the purview of this board, but
Yeah, I mean, at times, it may be, but, yeah. Take that under consideration.
yeah, and I think if we decide that this has to go to planning board, that is something that they might want to look at as well.
Okay. So those are the criteria required by footnote 1.
Yep.
We can move on to the special exception criteria or have more questions and discussions if you
Why
want.
don't you move on and we'll ask our questions if you don't mind
Absolutely.
without a formal.
So under the special exception criteria, item A is that the use is a permitted special exception as set forth in Article 4.2. It's a conversion of existing residential into multiple condominium uses is allowed per 4.2 Schedule 1, footnote 1. B is that the use is so designed, located, and proposed to be operated that the public health, safety, welfare, and convenience will be protected. It's on an existing single-family parcel containing 5 acres. It has sufficient parking on site without additional impervious. The septic will be upgraded, as we already talked about, so therefore we believe that the public health, safety, welfare, and convenience will be protected. Item C is that the proposed use will be compatible with the zoning district and adjoining post-1972 development where it is to be located. The surrounding zone is residential. This is a residential proposal, so we believe it's compatible with the zoning district and uses.
Are there any other multifamily properties in the immediate area?
I do not believe so, but I did not do an extensive review.
Okay, thank you.
D is that adequate landscaping and screening are provided as required. There is adequate landscaping. I don't know if you can let me pull this off again. There is, if you guys visited, some of you know, there is a good area of landscaping between the abutting lots, so we think it's fairly adequately screened.
There's almost nothing to the south.
It is tight on the south end, yes, but it's also an existing structure, existing parking, so
You're not changing the
we're not
footprint in
changing
any way.
anything.
Okay.
E is that adequate off-street parking and loading is provided, and ingress, egress is so designed to cause minimal interference with traffic on abutting streets. We kind of went through this, but it is existing drive and existing parking. We know that it has had higher intensity parking uses in the past. We don't know of any issues with that, so we believe that it meets that requirement.
You're not planning on changing the curb cut in any way?
No, we're not.
Wise.
Yeah, exterior, there's really no changes except
Right.
for the accessory structure going up.
Okay.
F is that the use conforms with all applicable regulations governing the district where located, except as may otherwise be determined for large-scale developments. The proposed project will comply with all applicable zoning regulations, and any deviation we understand would require a variance, but we're not asking for any variances or deviations. And G, as a condition of special exception approval, the applicant may be required to obtain town planner review and our planning board approval review. We are aware of that. We will be discussing it with the town planner and the planning board as required. H,
Well, that would be at our discretion. If we make it a condition, then you have to do it, but if we don't,
Exactly.
then I don't think you do.
Doesn't it say for 4 units that it should go to either the planner or the planning board? I thought I remembered that. I did.
Why don't you proceed, Mr. Guyer? One of us will find the...
Absolutely. H is that the use shall not adversely affect abutting or nearby property values. As we've said, they're trying to actually clean up the area or the property, and they're not adding anything that on the exterior that isn't already there, just cleaning it up, taking the one structure up 2 stories. So we don't believe it have any adverse impact on abutting property values. I is application for a special exception for bulk storage, which it is not, so it's not applicable. J is if the application is for a use in the professional tech park, which is not, so that is not applicable. And those are the criteria.
We've just had a brief discussion here, and if you go back to the Schedule 1 notes, under F, it says the Board of Adjustment may require the planning board to review the proposed site plan. All conversions consisting of 3 or more units must be reviewed by the planning board.
Yes,
Okay,
we are aware of that.
okay, good. So it's not at our discretion then?
Correct. I believe sometimes the planning board
Thanks.
says yes, move on.
Yes, they do, and I would imagine in a situation where the use is fairly consistent with the prior use and there's no change in the structure, I don't know that we would necessarily, they might look to us for guidance, and if we don't require it, then they might say, but it sounds as though you have to talk to the planner about it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Any questions from members of the board for the applicant?
I think we interrupted you and peppered you with enough questions, but,
I have one.
Okay,
okay.
Please,
You're so
Esther.
polite.
Schedule 1 note, C, structure has been a residence for a minimum of 10 years. I know you said the house was built in 1925, but has it been a residence? I know it was a church for a while. Was the house used as a residence while the church was
That is my
there?
understanding, is that it was used as a residence. Even though the accessory
Yeah, I just want to make sure that
structure was-
somebody has been living there, because if not,
That's my
it
understanding.
hasn't been a residence for 10 years.
Yeah. Ms. Sherman?
I just had 2 questions. One goes back to, and maybe I'm getting the weeds here, but where it's not a rental, in this rental, it would have to have been owner occupied at least 1 unit. But if they're condominiums, what if people then, will the documents say that you can't rent, like people sublet, that type of thing? Will that be covered somehow? And you can let me know if that's not relevant.
It's a good question.
It is a good question. We actually posed that question to the building inspector, and I think he is looking into that.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't think there is, well, we didn't find a requirement that an owner can't rent his unit, which is what
Right.
what you're asking.
Slope, because if all of them, or you limit them, there are condominiums where they limit the amount of, in the documents, you can say only X amount of percentage can
Correct.
be rented. So we got to be careful.
I'm flashing back here, Laura, help me out here. Do you recall a previous application within the last couple of years where we had some sort of a similar requirement?
Aspect or something where we talked about this a little bit.
I don't remember where it was. Does anybody else recall?
I remember we had something, I thought we had it, one of the provisions was in the documents for the condo association was you couldn't rent it, or was a minimum.
I don't think you could say
Couldn't rent, but
couldn't rent, but I think you can say that at least,
You could do the percentage somehow.
but again, I don't want to make stuff up that's not in the regs.
Right.
Well,
What if they all end up rented? Then there's another requirement if they become rentals. So I'm trying
Right,
to stop-
following the regulations, though,
You'd have to be owner
the
occupied.
applicant is proposing to sell the units.
Right.
So that really doesn't apply in this situation. I mean, I understand where you're coming from.
Right.
But under this application, it's not applicable.
unless ZV Investments LLC sold it to VZ Investments LLC, who bought all four and managed to lease them out.
Yeah.
I actually
Have I
think
spent a
that,
little too much time thinking about some of this corporate structure stuff?
I
You
actually
didn't
think
hear
it
me
does
ask that, that was not a
apply.
suggestion.
I think the intention of the requirement is not to have all the units be rental with no ownership interest
Correct.
involved. And so I think in the past we have, and never gotten any negative feedback on it either, that we have
One,
required that at least, I think, one unit
that at least one unit
remain
not be,
owner-occupied.
remain owner-occupied and not be sublet.
And the owner occupancy thing is a provision in other elements of the ordinance. It's not like it's a crazy, inappropriate thing. So I think
I'm
if,
assuming you would draw condominium documents, association documents.
They will, have to have condominium
The application, the
documents.
applicant will, that's out of your purview.
and, it has, not in a long time, maybe the 80s, when everybody was converting condos and they were being snapped up by investors, there have been problems with projects that were 100% investor and no owner occupants, so.
And the current trend is to have banks buy up individual rental properties and have somebody manage them rather than selling them. So in fact, that could happen here. Would you like to consult with your client as to
I would.
whether you would accept such a?
I would, if you would give us a few minutes.
Sure.
Absolutely.
When you said banks, did you mean investors?
No, I meant literally banks. Banks are buying up single-family homes, and instead of trying to turn them as they would and sell the mortgage as rapidly as they could, they're holding on to the property, hiring someone to manage it, and retaining the property, so that they would have whatever, the assumption being that the property is going to go up in value and they're going to benefit from that, and sell it later rather than selling it now. They make more, because interest rates are so low, they're making more money by the increase in the valuation of the property than they are on the mortgage.
That means banks are speculating in the real estate market, which I don't believe is in their charters.
Yeah, I would go with that. I believe that's what was it 2000 and what year was it that we got into trouble?
8?
Before that?
Well,
What was the
2000
S&L crisis?
Oh, yeah. That was in the 90s.
Yes, I was heavily involved in that, right? Before,
Like 90, 91?
almost earlier than that
Oh,
even.
you're right, late 80, you're right.
89 to 93,
88, 89.
in that
Yeah,
range.
right, the savings and loan crisis, yeah.
That had, anyway.
I think that might be the case more outside of New England, but it is something that
I mean, this is a little project, but that is.
I know. But I wouldn't want one arm of an investment company to sell it to another arm of an investment company who would then sublease all four. Then you have no ownership on site.
It's a rural residential district, so.
So I think requiring one is a fair compromise. We'll see how the applicant behaves.
Are we gonna do minutes even though people weren't here and Rick and
I hadn't even checked to see who, we've got me,
I was,
Laura,
Yeah.
Martha, and we have four.
but do you think Rick and
Kevin?
Kevin wanna have any say in that?
Not necessary for them to.
It's fine, no, it's just,
Not if we have a majority, four of the members are here. Shall we continue? That voice is good for something. Are there any further questions from the board?
Is your parking number just wrong on the map? Because you have 3 guest spots and 7 surface spots labeled.
There are 7 spots on this side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay, then the 3 up
There's 3
there.
on this side.
Okay.
Is there one in the house, gonna be put into the,
There will be 1 in each of the 3.
but not in the residential home that was
No,
there?
but they have,
Correct, they have the 2-car garage.
I only have one other question.
Excuse me. Go ahead.
Is there the ability to expand, let's say 2 or 3 years from now, is there enough room where you could come back to a ZBA and just say you want to build an additional unit or units?
There is room on the property to do that, but I don't know that there is provision to do that without a variance.
Right.
4 units are allowed, 5 are not, so
You're
it would.
converting what you already have.
Correct.
Right.
as a conversion, they'll be maxed out. They
Right.
have to completely change
Yeah.
the use to a new use and meet that new.
And frankly, the buildable area is not particularly large either,
Correct.
right? I mean, we go into wetland pretty
Yeah.
quick there.
Right.
Yeah. It's swampy pretty quick off the back there.
And there's certainly no height restriction out there.
I couldn't tell what it was, but as I pulled to the end of the building, Mr. Guyer, I could see what looked to be a structure back in the weeds, straight back.
It's been a while since I was out there, but I think there might have been a chicken coop or something of that nature out there. Is that what you're referring to?
I couldn't tell. I wasn't going to get out and explore.
It was pretty high weeds when I looked at it too, but I think that's the case.
Okay, it
was
looked like
something
there
of
was
that
a
nature.
structure back in there. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
It was very low, but I could see a roof line of some sort.
I think
down
that may have been what it was.
there. Okay. You're not planning on utilizing that building?
No,
at
that
all,
I'm
that's
sure
fine.
that the applicant's going to clear that up.
Okay, any more questions from members of the board? Hearing none, thank you. We will open it up to the members of the public. There's obviously no one here, and as I look, it appears there's no one online. There's something that says attendee 1, but I'm not sure who that is. Let me see if I can click on that. Oh, apparently I just clicked on a picture of myself.
Shane,
It's what?
go back to that attendee list.
Yeah.
There's a Shane on that list.
Where?
You gotta, it's not open, you gotta open the,
Oh. Shane Martin, do you wish to speak?
He's with the applicant.
okay.
Somebody's just listening in from afar? Very good. Then I don't need to look at myself. Oof. How do I get off the screen? Get me off the screen, please.
Can't you just close it?
It's been
Very distracting to see yourself on TV.
Now we get to see all of us.
Ew. I'm looking at myself. With no public attendee or online, we will close the public session. Normally at this stage, we would say, do you have anything else to add or any rebuttals? If not, we'll go into deliberation.
Well, if there's still the chance that that provision that we talked about might be included, the applicant and myself, we have an issue with the enforceability of that. The applicant intends to sell all the 4 units. They may be sold to, well, probably would be sold to 4 individuals. After that, how would the board or the town police the rental? I mean, it's very unlikely that all 4 units would be purchased for rental without, one of them being an owner occupied. But being able to police that is almost impossible. So putting that provision on it would only restrict his ability, to market this, because he is trying to sell all 4 units.
Traditionally, in condo documents, if there's, it's required that the association monitor the proportion of investor or tenant-occupied units, and that's included in the condo documents. Actual enforcement of it would be through the town, and typically only occurs if there's a complaint. However,
And we think the provision is in the regulations as they are for that purpose, but we are meeting the provisions of the regulation, so we don't want additional provisions put on the property, I guess is the applicant's point of view. Because if it's going to be rented, one of them is that's part of the applicant, or the part of the process in the regulations. So adding additional requirements, we think, is outside of the scope.
The requirements would be on the condominium association,
Correct.
not on the applicant, because the applicant's not going to be a member of the condominium association.
So we're considering an application in a rural residential district and whether or not this is in keeping with the neighborhood. And if you're asking us to dismiss the concern that it will be entirely renter occupied, then that's going to color our decision. So we're trying to work with you here, but we're not inclined to let go of the idea that there should be an owner-occupant on a property in a rural residential district. So, you know,
Okay.
we can consider your feelings on
Right.
this, but
Well, I
I
guess
feel
that's
like
what
we
we would
have,
ask, yeah.
we have an
Yeah.
opinion about this.
Right.
Sure.
And
Right.
we've expressed that opinion in other cases over time, and, you know,
We do feel that it is enforceable, not necessarily by the building inspector or the code enforcement officer, but through the condominium association
Okay.
self-governing it,
I have a question.
that aspect then. For the applicant?
For you, or for either. So
Well,
what-
if it's for the applicant, I'm about to close
Oh,
public,
okay.
I'm about to close public session.
Okay.
Is it for the applicant? Or is it
if you want to talk about it with,
deliberation?
Well, it might be a little bit of both, because
Go right ahead.
Well, it will have to do with the condo documents, to Ms. Davies' point. That in other words, would we condition it on, if this is a hypothetical, would the condition be on what we vote, just for what we vote, or is the condition that the condo documents will say
That's the-
X, Y, Z?
If we move forward, we would
Yes.
make a condition that the condominium association must specify that no more than X properties may be rented at any given time.
Okay, yeah.
Either a percentage or a number, and we can,
Yeah, okay.
that will be passed on as part of the legal document, part of the approval, and would make it into the
Right.
condo association.
Okay, that was the question.
With that, I'm going to close the public session. Gentlemen, if you don't mind, we're going to move to deliberations. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Guyer, appreciate it. Okay, I mean, in terms of the project itself, I think it's a great way of utilizing what is clearly an underperforming and not particularly well cared for property. I think that it's a reasonable project. I like the fact that there's no inclusion, no expansion of the footprint. As you can see from the chart there, I mean, it looks like that neighbor was carved out of this lot, quite obviously was carved out of this lot at some point in the past, and there isn't a big there's no setback from the garage. There's little setback from the impervious. But the neighbor's not here, has had an opportunity, I assume has been informed. I assume that was an owner-occupied structure next door, and so, you know, they had the opportunity. They obviously want to see the project improved, or the property improved as well. I think that we do need to go through both of the footnote criteria, the extra criteria, as well as the criteria for a special exception. I think we can march through those, but I'll just start by asking, does anyone have any questions or comments on the board? Hearing,
my only comment is I do think that we should request that the planning board consider the driveway access and whether or not it's falls under the existing driveway permit for this change of use.
okay,
I'm not suggesting we decide that for them, but that we should bring it to their attention. That's
I
all.
think that's fair enough. I take the applicant's point that the peak usage is going to be significantly less than it was when church was either coming or going, but there's going to be much more consistent, there'll be more nighttime, there might be younger drivers, you know, if there's kids in there, whatever, and coming out, looking to the left was a little fearsome. So I think that planning board may well want to take a look at that, but that is, this will have to go for town planner review, and so, or planning board review, so they will have an opportunity to address that. Would somebody like to walk us through either or both sets of the criteria?
My blue, get on my blue sheets.
Thank you.
We want to start with the special exception criteria, the footnote criteria, rather?
Okay. I'm just going to use the applicant's
Yep.
write-up of it. So for the footnotes, under Article 4.2, Schedule I, footnote 1, the number of spaces for off-street parking shall comply with the Article 5.6 off-street parking requirements, and the applicant has demonstrated that they have met that with some room to spare with the interior parking on the 3 new units, so that criteria has been met.
People on the board have any questions at any point, just jump right in. Laura's going to keep going with these.
Yes, and absolutely open for discussion. Can you hear me okay? With the
Yeah.
Okay. The minimum lot size required shall be such that each dwelling unit is provided with 30% of the minimum lot size per unit required for the district. The applicant presented calculations that 30% of the minimum lot size would be 13,068 square feet per unit times 4 units, which would require 52,272 square feet, and they have calculated the uplands plus 25% of the wetland area to equal 145,910, so they basically meet it almost 3 times what's required, so that's fine. The structure has been a residence for a minimum of 10 years, and the original building was constructed as a residence in 1925, and we have established that the applicant represents the primary residence has been occupied as a residence in the past 10 years. So that's item 3. Now, item 4. The lot must meet a minimum of 20% open space unless otherwise stated in Articles 4.3 and 4.4. And they more than have adequate open space. The calculation indicates 94.7% open space, which is well in excess. For conversions intended to become rental units, one of the dwellings shall remain owner-occupied. And in this case, the units are intended to be sold. So we've already discussed our feelings on that, and we can discuss it further if a motion is made. For item number 6, the Board of Adjustment may require Planning Board to review the proposed site plan, and in this case, because there are 4 units, it must be reviewed by the Planning Board, and the applicant has acknowledged that. Item
They
7.
have to come back after they?
No, not unless we require it, which I don't think there's any need to.
No,
In this
agreed.
case. But that's open for discussion if anybody wants to talk about it. Item 7, the Board of Adjustments may allow expansion to an existing structure for the purpose of providing additional area for the units, providing all other requirements are met. And in this case, they are expanding to an additional structure, or an existing structure. There is no additional expansion of more than 400 square feet of new construction to the buildings. So there's no requirement for that to be reviewed by the planning board, but it's going to be reviewed anyway. And then prior to any renovations, the owner shall provide evidence to the town building inspector that septic facilities are adequate for both units, according to the standards of the town and DES. And the applicant has indicated that they're going to be working on the septic system, and that the building inspector will be involved in approving that process. So I think we're covered on that one. So that covers the footnote. we ready to go through the
Yep.
special exception
I
criteria?
think we've agreed that they meet all of the criteria under the footnotes,
Yes,
okay?
with room to spare.
With room to spare on the size.
Okay, so special exception criteria, A, that the use is a permitted special exception. And we agree that it is a permitted special exception in the rural district. That the use is so designed, located, and proposed to be operated that the public health, safety, and welfare and convenience will be protected. I think that the existing structures are being utilized, there's no new construction, and with the review of the driveway, I believe that the public health, safety, and welfare and convenience would be protected
Agreed?
based on this proposal.
Yep.
That the proposed use, item C, the proposed use will be compatible with the zone district in adjoining post-1972 development. So this is where we were talking a little bit about the concern of a 4-unit property in a rural residential area. Not tremendous number, if any, multifamilies in the area, and that we had the concern about owner occupancy being at least some element of the property. So I believe we've discussed that, and we can address it in conditions if we wish to.
Agreed?
So adequate landscaping and screening are provided. I think that has been adequately discussed with the lack of new construction and the existing screening, providing adequate screening. Item E, that adequate off-street parking and loading is provided, and ingress and egress is so designed as to cause minimum interference with traffic on abutting streets. And again, just because of the nature of Newfields Road, slight concern about the driveway, wanting it to be, make sure that it's properly permitted with DOT for the new use. Item E.
May I stop for a second, Laura?
Yep.
Would you say a note to that effect as opposed to a condition to that effect on any motion? Or is simply the minutes of this meeting sufficient to say that we are aware of that? Because I'm not sure that if they don't change the curb cut, they have to go.
Oh, I'm not suggesting that I know that, or, that there is anything further required.
If we approve the application, then I don't think they have to go to DOT, because they're not going to change the curb cut.
If the use changes, and I don't know if this constitutes a use change.
I'm not sure that it does.
It's still residential, but it's no longer single-family, and I know that DOT frequently conditions permits on single-family only use. So I think it's possible, and I think, the planning board should consider whether or not that.
So that might be a note to the planning board.
Right.
Thank you.
Sorry, but I work for DOT, so. G, as a condition of special exception approval, the applicant may be required to obtain town planner review. We've already discussed that will be required due to the number of units.
Did you miss F?
Did I? Oh, yes, I did. Sorry. That the use conforms with all applicable regulations governing the district where located, except as otherwise may be determined for large-scale developments. So, other than the number of units, which is covered under the special exception to a conversion criteria, it does conform with all the regulations for the governing district.
Yep.
So that's not a concern. Thank you for bringing that up, though. Okay, so we are on item H. Am I right? That the use shall not adversely affect abutting or nearby property values. I don't have a concern about that. I think that the fact that it's in existing structures and that it's going to be a nice investment in the area and the nature of the property and the way it's sited shouldn't be an issue.
Agreed.
Anybody? There was no evidence presented, really, to the contrary, obviously, since there was no one else here, but the applicant contends that it won't, and I agree with that.
Everything that's there is going to be grandfathered in, as in the garage and so that everything the way that we're talking about the garage and the screening there is grandfathered in. So as far as we are, we're satisfied with that?
You mean the fact that the garage is well within the setback on the, that sort of thing? Yes.
And what about the wetlands in the back? Because they're already there and they're not going any further, is that still?
Again, the existing structure is, I hope it's outside of the setback from the wetland. I don't know whether it is or it isn't, as long as they don't modify the footprint of that
that way.
structure.
Yeah.
The open space doesn't count toward, yeah, okay.
Yep.
Are you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Ms. Davies, would you like to continue? You're on a roll.
Items I and J do not really apply to this application because there's no bulk storage
Correct.
of any materials and it's not in the professional tech park district. So
I was hoping that you would continue as in,
make a motion?
yeah, that part.
Give me 1 second to think about, we talked about the, I don't know that we need to require planning board review, but I do think that,
Just ideas.
yeah, no, I agree. Thank you, and I had temporarily spaced on that. Okay, so I would like to make a motion to approve the application of ZV Investments LLC for a special exception per Article 4, Section 4.2, Schedule I, permitted uses, and Article 5, Section 5.2, to permit the conversion of an existing single-family home and accessory structure into 4 residential condominium units as proposed. I would like to include the condition that the condominium documents include a provision that at least one unit be owner-occupied, and a note to the planning board when they review this application as required, that they consider the driveway permit and whether it's adequate to the proposed use.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Merrill?
No?
Ms. Olson-Murphy?
No,
Ms. Sermon?
No.
Ms. Davies?
I'm good.
Call the vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye, 5-0.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing a much nicer looking property out there in the near future.
Yeah, that would be very attractive.
Good.
I'm sure they will. Was this being marketed as a conversion potential, or was that your idea? Just curious.
No, it really wasn't. That's why I pursued it.
That's a good idea.
Thank you for your support.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks for working in Exeter.
It's a pleasure.
There you go. Okay. So, other business, we have the approval of the minutes of the July 2021 meeting. Myself, Ms. Davies, Ms. Pennell, and Ms. Sermon are all participants in this. I looked it over fairly carefully because I wanted to make sure that we got this correct. And frankly, I had no notes. That doesn't mean that I didn't miss something. And it's Mr. Thilbar who usually grinds in and finds stuff. But I was not able to, as I go through here, no. I was not able to find anything that concerned me in the notes. However, I would like a clarification on something. My recollection, Ms. Davies,
Yes,
is that you did not vote aye.
this is correct.
It was 4-1, not 5-0 on the Anderson's application, was it not?
It was.
I'm on line 437.
You're right.
So you made the initial motion on 407, which did not receive a second. And then I made a motion, and there was discussion. But then on lines 436 and 437, Ms. Davies did not vote aye. Ms. Davies voted nay, and the application was denied 4-1. Am I correct?
I'm just catching up to you. Let me read it.
Sorry, I'm on lines 436. Everything up to that point is fine. So if you look at 431,
Yep.
right?
No, I'm with you. I just
That was-
wanted to read it to be careful.
That was a motion to amend that failed 2-3. But then the motion itself denied 4-1, not 5-0.
Correct.
That is a rather important change.
Okay, so to read it aloud into the record, it should read, Mr. Pryor, Mr. Thielbar, Ms. Pennell, and Mr. Baum voted aye. Ms. Davies voted nay.
And the application was denied 4-1.
Correct.
So everybody, Martha, does that seem correct to you?
When I was reading this, I thought it odd that it was a 5-0 vote, but then to be honest with you, I can't remember.
I clearly remember that Laura voted,
Yeah,
You-
I did.
You had a good case, I mean, you had a case behind it.
because you'd made the original motion to accept.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, my thought was that if it was tied to the commercial use, the two things tied together, that I was okay with
That was
it.
how you were going to condition it.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember.
Right. But other than that rather important change to lines 436 and 437, I think it's fine.
What happens if Rick and Kevin find something different?
Well, first of all, they received the packet and had the opportunity to look through it, and I would expect that if either one of them had found something,
They will let you know.
they would have let us know.
Okay.
They would have let us know. So, motion to accept the minutes as amended.
So moved.
Seconded?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. So Pryor, Davies, Pennell, Sermon, vote. All in favor of approving the minutes as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved as amended, 4-0, and I want to make sure that the as amended part is pretty clear. All right?
And I will
they-
not
Thank you,
steal
Joanna,
your
if
thing.
you're listening, as I'm sure you will be.
Have they come back and it,
What was the date of the, we're not at 30 days yet.
okay.
We're still a couple of days short of 30 days. Today's the 17th. So they've got a couple more days. Shh, shh. Don't say anything. Thank you all very much. Motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're out. Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.